You can't hold a people down forever. It can take a long time, but if the injustice becomes too intense, they will rise up. Liberty leading the people captures the spirit and resolve of a people once again yearning for liberation, casting off the shackles of oppression, determined to be free no matter the cost. Eugène Delacroix painted this in 1830, describing events of that year. But its themes resonated in France back 40 years to the French Revolution in 1789 and forward 40 years when the final Napoleonic emperor was deposed in 1870. This period includes the 1832 insurrection 2 years later, the one described by Victor Hugo in Les Misérables. Let's start with the French Revolution, which this painting is not depicting. The storming of the Bastille in Paris on 14 July 1789 resulted in abolishing feudalism, state control of the Catholic Church, and a declaration of rights. For 3 years until 1792 there was political turmoil, leading to an insurrection, the abolition of the monarchy, and the declaration of the French First Republic. Soon after, King Louis XVI was executed. The Republic did not last long. A reign of terror followed its proclamation, and internal opposition and external threats led to the Republic being replaced by other unsatisfactory arrangements until Napoleon Bonaparte's coup in 1799. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor. Napoleon provoked wars and conquests around Europe and Egypt, only being stopped due to his disastrous campaign against Russia, after which his own people exiled him to the island of Elba in 1814. 10 months later, he had escaped with 1,000 soldiers and marched on Paris, where he regained control and was only finally stopped at the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815. In France, the monarchy was restored. This seems unbelievable, but the ups and downs of the Napoleonic years had taken their toll, and some at least wanted a return to normality. Louis XVIII reigned for around a decade, followed by Charles X. Charles reigned until 1830, the time of our painting. Following a Chamber of Deputies election result that Charles disliked, he declared an emergency, suspended the Constitution, and issued 4 ordinances to censor the press, dissolve the newly elected chamber, alter the electoral system, and called for elections under a new electoral system that he had devised. Louis and Charles had been called the Bourbon Kings. The people had at this moment had enough of kings and rose up disavowing the past decades with their shouts of "Down with the Bourbons." The next day, police shut down newspapers, but the protesters, on hearing this, threw stones at the soldiers, prompting them to shoot, causing chaos and then looting. The protesters erected barricades, some say up to 4,000, and some of the soldiers left their ranks and joined the protesters. The king, who had refused to compromise on his 4 ordinances, found himself only a few days later having to abdicate. He fled to Britain. But again, other kings followed, and more uprisings. Finally, a descendant of Napoleon Bonaparte became emperor in 1852 as Napoleon III. He reigned until 1870, when he was deposed and the French Third Republic declared. The painting is often mistaken as a French Revolution painting. Having just taken you through some history, we see that there are over 80 years of turmoil, and sometimes peace, from 1789 to 1870, before France finally settled on not being ruled by a monarch at all. And although this painting is set in 1830, the resonances with other uprisings are obvious. To the barricades. The style is romantic, in fact French Romanticism, with a focus on colour and movement, filling the canvas with dynamic action. Delacroix has moved on from more formally posed scenes to provide us with action wherever we look. Using a classic pyramid composition, he leads us to liberty and the flag as the pinnacle concept of the painting. The central character is named for us. Her name is Liberty. She is mythical, allegorical. She wears a Phrygian cap, an ancient symbol of freedom. She has a bayoneted musket in one hand and with the other has grasped the tricolour flag, symbol of the revolution, and is urging the French populace forward even over the bodies of the fallen and the vanquished. This National Guardsman in the front. Compare the depiction of her full-blooded action with other allegorical women, say Britannia, who looks a bit comfortable and self-satisfied by comparison. And because titles of paintings are important, we should note that she is leading the people. The people is a positive way of describing such a grouping. If the painting had been called Liberty Leading the Mob, we would feel differently about what is going on. But no, this is portrayed as a popular uprising, the result of the collective will of the true French population, the people. Surveying the other major figures in the painting we have, this man, the only one looking directly at Liberty. It's hard to see, but he's dying. Here's his blood spilling out. His dying thoughts are portrayed as being focused on liberty. This reminds us that there is a cost. Nothing is for free. There is always a risk, not just of failure, but of imprisonment or even death. To his left, a man with a top hat, at the time merely the marker of, say, an artisan or a manager. The thought is to portray the uprising as covering many types within society, including the bourgeoisie, the middle class. This man is probably at the lower end of the middle class, not the wealthy end. Typically, it was the wealthy end of the bourgeoisie which reaped most of the benefits of the revolution, but were less active in its prosecution. Now the man with the sword. He's wearing what looks like a leather apron, no jacket, but has both a pistol and a sword. Further, he is wearing a cap with an insignia. Is he a member of a local revolutionary militia? Probably. Then this fellow getting rocks also has a distinctive hat. It links with the insignia Napoleon used, telling us that his supporters too were part of the broad coalition working to remove the unpopular king, Charles X. He seems a little more used to battle, keeping low and protecting his body. And then this young boy, wearing a student cap. Again, he reminds us of the young boy Gavroche in Les Misérables. He's seen here, in fact, ahead of liberty. The excitement of battle, the clear-eyed enthusiasm of youth, the sense that right will win and that he will live. All things that are not guaranteed at all. The buildings. You can still see this style of building in Paris. And here is Notre Dame, Paris's famous cathedral, sporting the tricolour flag. The painting is evocative of a time and place. It is full of action, it stirs the blood, it puts us on the side of those seeking justice. A painting can achieve something a photograph rarely, if ever, can. It can tell the whole story, include all the players, each fulfilling their role, and, as in this one, include mythical or allegorical people, Liberty herself. Because what is really leading the people is a concept. The woman embodies an idea that lives within the hearts of the oppressed, that this is wrong, that our day will come, that justice will come. She serves as a warning to despotic leaders. You cannot keep us down. She serves as a warning to all leaders. Don't let things get out of kilter. Too much distance between rich and poor. People put into serfdom, virtual slavery. People kept poor and ignorant. Controlled media. You can't get out of step with reality, because in the end we won't stand for it. The French certainly recognised the role of uprisings in the formation of their modern nation. Have you ever read a translation of La Marseillaise, the French national anthem? Here's the first verse as a taste. Let's go, children of the motherland, the day of glory has arrived. All the tyranny are against us, their blood-spattered banners arise. Can you hear now out in the country, their bloodthirsty soldiers ablare? They're coming right into your hands, to cut throats to sons of yours, your women. But then the chorus. To arms, compatriots, form up your battle corps. March on, let blood impure into our furrows pour. Manning the barricades, taking to the streets, waving flags, firing pistols. It's exciting, exhilarating, when the beating of your heart matches the beating of the drum. But the outcomes are less certain, as the failed uprisings at the time of this painting and the one 2 years later described in Les Misérables show. Are they necessary steps in the process? Gandhi and Martin Luther King tried non-violent protest, and they achieved change. But it has to be agreed that history is full of armed conflict and violent uprisings. Is it ever worth it? Well, that depends. Many nations have terrible histories, but also recognise the role of bloodshed in their formation. The trouble with this is that anyone who doesn't like the status quo can think that violence is the only way to achieve change, and this becomes a justification for endless political violence. You can look at a painting like this and, following the artist's intention and thought leadership, agree that the time to rise up against the bloodthirsty soldiers has arrived. You can look into the eyes of Eddie Redmayne and choose your place with the uprising. Or you can try to take a broader view of the ways to implement change. Those that choose violence will be met with violence. Well, even those that choose non-violence can be met with violence. Change is hard. I haven't even spoken about state-sanctioned violence, war, as a means to stop injustice, such as invading other countries. But sticking to the subject of our painting, an uprising within a country. What causes people to man the barricades? Usually gross injustice. This is a warning to leaders everywhere. Is it justified? While history gives examples of bloody uprisings achieving change, it is also replete with failed uprisings and political violence dressed up as being on the side of the angels. And we have to note, even successful uprisings that depose bad leaders do not guarantee that worse is yet to come. In our modern world, it is past time to leave violence behind and fight with the legal levers at our disposal. If Eugène Delacroix can use an allegorical woman to depict liberty, surely those facing injustice can use the thought of fighting in an allegorical sense, not a physical one. I know there's counterexamples all over the world. I know it's not simple. But for those of us in democracies, we have one weapon that many do not have. We have the ballot box. Well, I thought this was going to be simple. Liberty comes at a price, and those who have paid it. But we can fall for the emotions of a painting, apply it to our own situation, and take political discourse and our own values back 200 years. And here's a piece of art from 200 years ago, still working to raise these questions and make us think. Another piece of art that had quite the political impact is Guernica, Picasso's response to the bombing of a Basque town in the lead up to World War II. It should be on the screen now, worth a look. Thanks for watching, see you next time. Louis and Charles had been called the Louis and Charles had been called the Bourbon King. Bourbon.